Today's topic is on Alzheimer's disease, understanding Alzheimer's. And so we're going to go into what it is and basically everything you'd want to know in relation to this and understanding it. We're talking about it largely because June is actually Alzheimer's Awareness Month. So some little quick facts on it. Over 6 million Americans have Alzheimer's disease, and there's over 50 million people worldwide with Alzheimer's. And these are estimates. Of course, you know, it could be more, maybe a little less, but it is a fairly common condition. Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death in America, and the estimated cost of Alzheimer's and dementia care in America in this year is going to be around $355 billion. And it's estimated by 2050 to be $1.1 trillion. So it has a huge impact on the economy as well. A lot of money goes into this. And it's a condition that affects many, many people. So with that, what is Alzheimer's disease? It's an irreversible, progressive brain disorder that slowly destroys memory and thinking skills and eventually the ability to carry out the simplest of tasks. So it's, you know, kind of like Parkinson's and other neurological conditions, you know, it is progressive and it's, you know, unfortunately, as of right now, it's irreversible. And it is affecting the brain. Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. Dementia is a general term for the loss of memory, language, and problem-solving skills and other thinking abilities that are severe enough to interfere with daily life. So there's a lot of different kinds of dementia, but Alzheimer's is the most common. It makes up 60 to 80% of all dementia. Alzheimer's worsens over time. It's progressive, as we said, and the dementia symptoms gradually worsen over a number of years. And Alzheimer's has no cure yet. Most medications treat the symptoms but have no effect on the progression. There was a recently FDA-approved drug called aducanumab, sorry for the pronunciation, aducanumab, which may delay progression. We're going to talk a little bit about it later on. This new drug actually was just FDA approved this year. So kind of an interesting, potentially exciting new treatment for Alzheimer's. We'll talk a little bit about it and things to be excited about and things maybe not so much. All right, so diving into Alzheimer's a little bit more, kind of know what it is, but how. Now we're talking about how it is, you know, what causes it. So Alzheimer's affects the brain due to what are known as plaques and tangles that form in the brain and cause damage and brain atrophy over time. Plaques are these abnormal clusters of protein, particularly protein beta amyloid fragments, and they build up between your nerve cells. So your brain has over 100 billion nerve cells, and this beta amyloid, something goes wrong in that they start to clump together and form a plaque, and that gets in between your neurons, which interferes with their communication. The other common thing that happens are the development of tangles. There's another protein called tau that starts to form and build up inside the neurons themselves and disrupts vital cell transport and maintenance, basically. And so tangles really start to kill the nerves themselves. So Alzheimer's, there's a large frequency of these two proteins, basically, that abnormally build up. They tend to spread through the cortex in a predictable pattern as Alzheimer's disease progresses, but the rate of progression does vary from individual to individual. You can kind of see a couple pictures here. One of the, and I have my mouse here, one of the normal brain on the left, and then the abnormal, severe Alzheimer's on the right. You can see the brain really atrophies in more severe stages. And Alzheimer's is pretty typical where it starts and kind of how it progresses in the brain. The early stages, you can kind of see here, and we'll look at actually better pictures here in a moment, but starts in the hippocampus, which is known for your memory. And then over time, it just spreads from there into more of the thinking and processing social areas of the brain. And then eventually most of the brain gets drastically affected as more neurons die. Okay. And so I wanted to, if you're all interested, I have this short video. I didn't make it. It's by the National Institute of Health. And we'll see if it opens. Yeah, that did. But this, hopefully the sound goes through. Let me know if it doesn't. But this video highlights, goes over the neurology, probably better than what I can say. And I found it really interesting just to understand Alzheimer's. So just, I think it's about just under 4 minutes. Is everyone
healthy people,
able to hear this? Okay.
Movements, thoughts, memories, and feelings are the result of signals that pass through billions of nerve cells or neurons in the brain. Neurons constantly communicate with each other through electrical charges that travel down axons, causing the release of chemicals across tiny gaps to neighboring neurons. Other cells in the brain, such as astrocytes and microglia, clear away debris and help keep neurons healthy. In a person with Alzheimer's disease, the most basic form of dementia, toxic changes in the brain destroy this healthy balance. These changes may occur years, even decades, before the first signs of dementia. Researchers believe that this process involves two proteins called beta amyloid and tau, which somehow become toxic to the brain. It appears that abnormal tau accumulates, eventually forming tangles inside neurons. And beta amyloid clumps into plaques, which slowly build up between neurons. As the level of amyloid reaches a tipping point, there is a rapid spread of tau throughout the brain. But tau and beta amyloid may not be the only factors involved in Alzheimer's. Other changes that affect the brain may also play a role over time. The vascular system may fail to deliver sufficient blood and nutrients to the brain. The brain may lack the glucose needed to power its activity. Chronic inflammation sets in as microglial cells fail to clear away debris, and astrocytes react to distressed microglia. Eventually, neurons lose their ability to communicate. As neurons die, the brain shrinks, beginning in the hippocampus, a part of the brain important to learning and memory. People may begin to experience memory loss, impaired decision-making, and language problems. As more neurons die throughout the brain, a person with Alzheimer's gradually loses the ability to think, remember, make decisions, and function independently. Achieving a deeper understanding of the molecular and cellular mechanisms and how they may interact is vital to the development of effective therapies. Much progress has been made in identifying various underlying factors. Advances in brain imaging allow us to see the course of plaques and tangles in the living brain. Blood and fluid biomarkers are providing insights about when the disease starts and how it progresses. More is also known about the genetic underpinnings of the disease and how they can affect particular biological pathways. These advances enable the development and testing of promising new therapies, including drugs that reduce or clear the increase of tau and amyloid proteins in the brain, therapies targeting the vascular system, glucose metabolism, and inflammation, and lifestyle interventions like exercise or diet, and behavioral approaches like social engagement that may enhance brain health. Research is moving quickly, ever closer to the day when we can delay or even prevent the devastation of dementia.
Okay. All right. So thanks for kind of watching that. Kind of gives a overview of a little bit what we talked about, and then and what we'll continue to talk about as we go. But um, anyway, so as you can see, Alzheimer's is progressive. There's in the earliest stages, it's not really detectable, and the earliest stage could be up to 20 years before a diagnosis is actually made. But it is in these stages that beta amyloid and tau start to develop in the hippocampus regions of the brain. Um, and so as you can see, the hippocampus, and it also it's known as the entorhinal cortex, or EC. And these are parts of the brain that are associated with learning and memory. So that's why little lapses in memory start to, those are some of the first symptoms, but those are also common symptoms, just as we get older, we all have, short-term memory loss in certain times. So it's hard to make a diagnosis early on. In the mid to moderate stages, brain regions important to memory and thinking and planning develop more plaques and tangles. And so as you can kind of see in the blue, it's darker, there's more abundance of this stuff. And individuals develop problems with memory or thinking serious enough to interfere with work and social life. They may also get confused and have trouble handling money, expressing themselves, and organizing their thoughts. Many people with Alzheimer's are first diagnosed in these stages. So this is typically when first diagnosis occurs. As Alzheimer's progresses, individuals may experience changes in personality and behavior and may have trouble recognizing friends and families. So this is typically one of the longer stages in Alzheimer's, and progressively, symptoms do get worse, but it can last anywhere from 2 to 10 years. And then finally, in the last stages of Alzheimer's, advanced stages, you have most of the cortex is seriously damaged. That's the main part of the brain. The brain shrinks dramatically due to widespread cell death, and individuals lose their ability to communicate, to recognize family and loved ones, and to care for themselves. So, it's ultimately enough of the nerves have died that it becomes pretty close to fatal. And this can be anywhere from 1 to 5 years. So those are the general stages. Some of the signs and symptoms, and if enough of these are present, that's when it's a doctor may recommend a cognitive exam and such. But memory loss that disrupts daily life, challenges in planning or solving problems, difficulty completing familiar tasks, confusion with time or place, trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships, new problems with words in speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps, decreased or poor judgment, withdrawal from work or social activities, and changes in mood and personality. So if these become really, the big thing that makes it a major symptom is if it starts to really affect your daily life. When daily life is affected by these kind of memory lapses, that's when it's good to have a doctor checked out.
What is it that kills people, though?
Well, the brain ultimately, enough of the nerves die that some basic functions, the brain ultimately is the executor of your body. And so if enough nerves die, then basic functions of the body, will. Yeah.
Yes, I could see. Yes, of course.
The cause, but that is also just to reiterate, Jackie, this is why Alzheimer's does last a long time. It's not necessarily affecting your vital areas right away. It is affecting more, social and cognitive areas, but these are not necessarily parts of the brain that are essential. It's not affecting areas that are forcing, allowing you to breathe or for your heart to pump. So, so that's why it does take a long time typically. All right, so the cause is still not fully understood of Alzheimer's. It's likely a combination of age-related changes in the brain, along with genetic, environmental, and health and lifestyle factors. So as with a lot of neurological conditions, it's kind of mysterious, but an interaction of all these factors does play a role, and we'll kind of jump into each of them. So age-related factors. Old age does not cause Alzheimer's, but it's the most important known risk factor for the disease, because the number of people with Alzheimer's disease doubles about every 5 years beyond age 65. So beyond age 65, there's just like almost exponential increase of the development of Alzheimer's. About 1/3 of all people aged 85 or older may have Alzheimer's disease. And so the brain, and the reason why, as we get older, just basic maintenance of the brain and such, there's a lot of the support cells in our brain just start losing their function. They're not quite as effective as they are when you're younger. And so there is natural brain loss over time. There is some atrophy of the brain over time. And because there is that natural like weakness, then that's gonna, make you more susceptible to development of Alzheimer's. Genetic factors is a big one. For most Alzheimer's, is late onset, which means that it first appears in the person's mid-60s or later. And this is largely linked to a gene called APOE4. And doesn't mean that if you have this gene, you'll develop Alzheimer's, but it's just a gene that's very common among people that develop it late. There's also early onset Alzheimer's, which starts between the 30s and 60s. This is a pretty rare condition of it. And this is usually caused by a gene passed from a parent to child. So if a parent got Alzheimer's early on, then there is a good chance that the child actually also could develop the early onset as well. But family history, generally not a clear indicator that that's gonna mean you get Alzheimer's. Health and lifestyle factors, finally. Health factors, vascular conditions like high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke have been associated with development of Alzheimer's. Same with metabolic conditions like diabetes and obesity. There was a little talk in the video about, about the brain not getting enough blood and such. And so vascular conditions could, very well affect the, those support cells in the brain and lead to Alzheimer's. Conditions like diabetes, where there's high amounts of glucose or too little glucose to the brain, which is blood sugar, that may also in some way affect this condition. Finally, just basic lifestyle factors. If you have a poor diet, low physical activity, lack of social engagement, poor sleep, or lack of mental stimulation, all of those just make you more prone to development of Alzheimer's. So just basically, basic healthy factors. To diagnose Alzheimer's, physicians often use a number of tests. First, they'll look at your medical history. So, if it is in your family, that, could be part of the indicator. Mental status tests, cognitive exams, physical and neurological exams, diagnostic tests, and brain imaging, all typically are used to make the diagnosis. And then finally, for treatment, Alzheimer's disease is complex, so it's unlikely that any one drug or intervention will succeed to treat it on its own. But current approaches focus on drugs that help people maintain mental function, manage behavioral symptoms, and slow down the symptoms of the disease. And we're gonna right now talk about the new drug, because this is kind of an interesting thing that just happened this month. Is this drug it's being sold as Aduhelm, but it's been recently approved by the FDA, and it's a therapy that may potentially delay the decline from the disease. So it doesn't cure it, but might potentially give you some more years of good function. It's the first therapy to demonstrate that removing amyloid beta protein, that protein that develops the plaques from the brain, may delay your decline. So this drug specifically targets getting rid of that amyloid beta protein plaques, and that potentially that they have found that it seems to delay the overall effect of Alzheimer's, the progression. It was only tested on participants with mild cases of Alzheimer's. It's a medication that's administered intravenously for 45 to 60 minutes every 4 weeks. There are some side effects, minor brain swelling and hemorrhaging, as well as falls. And there is a little bit of controversy with this new drug. The panel of experts, an outside panel of experts, was against the approval, citing there was red flags and lack of strong evidence. And actually, as soon as it was approved, 3 of the members of the FDA review board resigned. So it seemed like it may have been something that was just kind of pushed to be approved, but may not have the amount of strong evidence that would be really needed. But still, it's exciting because it is the first drug in a long time to come out for Alzheimer's, and it's the only one so far that actually may potentially delay the progression. So something to look into, and kind of interesting, just happened this month during Alzheimer's Awareness Month. So just a few more things. Physical activity, as a fitness person, I'm always pushing this, but physical activity is a valuable part of any overall body wellness plan, and associated with lower risk of cognitive decline. Cardiovascular exercise in particular increases blood flow to your brain and body, providing additional nourishment while reducing potential dementia risk. So you want to consider physical activities that are mentally or socially engaging, such as walking with a friend, taking a dance class, or joining an exercise class. And physical activity improves strength and balance and reduces risk of falls, which all you're susceptible to, with cognitive decline. So physical activity is always a big thing. And other ways to minimize your risk of Alzheimer's, visit your doctor regularly, get your numbers checked, including weight, blood sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol. Actively seek treatment to keep yourself within healthy ranges. If you have diabetes, manage it properly. Stop smoking if you do, and don't start. Take action to minimize stress. Studies have found that regular physical activity decreases stress, so increases your ability to manage stress and leads you to a better mood overall. So another plus to your physical activity. Make sure you get enough sleep. Inadequate sleep due to conditions like insomnia or sleep apnea can result in problems with memory and thinking. You want to avoid excess alcohol and seek professional assistance to address anxiety, depression, and other mental health concerns. So these are mostly all conditions that just too much of a bad thing can always put you at risk for something like Alzheimer's. So you want to manage them and just stay healthy. And with that, we are on to questions. So